All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I teased this on Wednesday that I was going to have a very special guest on to cover who covers the San Francisco 49ers, and that's Rob Stats Guerrera. What's up, Rob? How's it going?
Hey, Jeff, it's going great. How are
Uh-huh.
you?
Oh, I'm fine. I mean, hey, like I said, we did an NFL podcast on Monday, the Fans First Football Show. I kind of said this. I feel like the Steelers are just kind of like this ho-hum nothing burger, whereas the San Francisco 49ers are like the drama queens of high school. You know, there's always something going on. Nick Bosa signs his deal. I mean, you got to be ecstatic. That was the same feeling the Steelers had 2 years ago when TJ Watt signed his deal prior to week 1 against the Buffalo Bills. What's your knee-jerk reaction to the Bosa, everything from the minutia of the numbers to how this impacts the team, all that stuff?
Well, first of all, it was just an exhale. Like it was this dark cloud hanging over the team to start the season. Even Trent Williams in the locker room yesterday said, yeah, it was sort of hanging over the team because he's that good and he makes that much of a difference on the defense. And I had uttered the name TJ Watt forever because Niner fans were going through the stages of coping. First, it was, well, he doesn't really need training camp. He's Nick Bosa. He's in perfect shape. Then it's preseason week 1. He doesn't really need week 1 preseason. There's still 2 more games. And then we just kept pushing it back, right? We kept moving the goalposts until finally it was, well, TJ Watt showed up, 48 hours before the game or whatever and dominated. So that's like the journey that I have been on. But now Nick Bosa is in. He makes that defensive line so much more formidable because you either have to double team him, you double team Javon Hargrave. That leaves Eric Armstead one-on-one. That leaves Drake Jackson one-on-one. The pressure that they can now put on you just with their front four is completely different than it was 24 hours ago.
Well, let's focus on Bosa for a second, and I want to get your thought on expectations for him in this game on Sunday, because I'll be honest, there is one giant difference between himself and TJ Watt, and that's TJ Watt performed more of the hold in, where he was in training camp. He was doing all the individual drills. He did everything except for team drills and participate in preseason games. Bosa was away from the team, and even TJ Watt in that game against Buffalo afterwards, which he registered 2 sacks of Josh Allen. He was still a dynamic player. He talked about how he was gassed and he didn't get to play as much because he just was not in game shape. But what are your expectations for Nick Bosa in this game on Sunday?
Well, despite the fact that his mom went on local radio in San Francisco yesterday and said he's bigger, stronger, faster, best shape of his life, all that stuff, I'm a firm believer in the idea that you can't truly be ready for football without doing football. And I know that the Bosas keep themselves in great shape and all of that stuff, but I will not be shocked if afterwards we find out, hey, Nick Bosa was on a snap count, or hey, he was out at this point of the game because he was just gassed, like you said. I think that even the guys that keep themselves in great shape can't totally be ready to go until they've actually done it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was on some kind of snap count. I think we're going to have to look at quality versus quantity for Bosa on Sunday.
Is that where we are now, having a player's mom on local radio?
I saw that and I was like, oh, should I use that? And I'm like, it's his mom. Like, what's she going to say? Right. He's been looking a little sluggish around the house. Yeah. He's been kind of, just loafing around, but I guess it's good, but I'm not going to, go over the moon about it.
I thought the Watt brothers were bad. Bosa's might be on a different level. All right, let's go on to injuries, because that's going to be a big thing for a lot of teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Minimal. But by the time this is being recorded, the Thursday injury report has not been released. So we're basing all this on the Wednesday injury report. The Steelers, Cam Hayward was given the day off, and Larry Ogunjobi was limited. Now, there was one big injury, which was kind of going around social media perspective, and it was the groin injury to George Kittle. Now, I saw that, correct me if I'm wrong, George Kittle was limited in practice Wednesday. What are the other injuries? Are there any other injuries for the 49ers that the Steeler fans might want to know about heading into this week 1 game?
So here's the thing. They don't have anybody that's been out, but like you said, Kittle was limited. They got a lot of guys that we don't really know about. Kittle was limited. Their starting safety, who was an all-pro last year, Talanoa Hufanga, was limited with a knee injury. He's got a cyst on the back of his knee, which is really weird. I don't even know what to make of that, what you do with that. Their kick returner, Ray McLeod, had surgery about 4 weeks ago on his wrist. He is back practicing, but I supposedly he's going to go, but do you really feel totally comfortable there? So no one is out, but there are a bunch of guys, including Kittle, that aren't totally 100%, as there always are with this team.
Yeah, and week one, typically it's when teams are the most healthy. I mean, that's when, you play your cards right. You hopefully don't have a lot of those procedures like Ray McLeod cysts in the back of the knee, which is definitely unique based on what that might look like from a diagnosis perspective. But hey, the Steeler fans know Ray McLeod, and he can have
That's
the
right.
spark play, and he was with the Steelers. And that brings me to my next point. I want to get your take. Look, the 49ers, we were talking about this on another podcast amongst the Steel Curtain Network. I think this might be the toughest game on the Steelers schedule, all 17 games. They're that good. I mean, they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think the roster got better with additions like Javon Hargrave, Brock Purdy. Love him or not, he has experience under his belt now. As long as his elbow holds up, should be fine. What are the weaknesses though? If you were to try and pinpoint a weakness, and Rob, I know there are weaknesses because you're going to call them out when no one else is doing it over there on your podcast platform. What are some of the weaknesses that if you're you're developing a plan for the Steelers, you're like, hey, this is what we want to do both on offense and defense to attack the 49ers. What is that?
Well, I think the 49ers, the right side of the offensive line is definitely a weakness. You've got Colt McKivitz at right tackle. He was a guy the Niners had actually cut not too long ago at one point. So that tells you, where his standing is. At one point, he wasn't even good enough to be on the 49ers. Now he's the unquestioned starter at right tackle. So I don't love that. Their right guard is Spencer Burford. He was a 4th-round rookie last year. He was okay, but, you'd like to have a little more ability on that side of the line. So that's definitely a weakness that the Steelers can attack. I'm sure they are going to have TJ Watt there instead of going up against Trent Williams on the other side. That's definitely a weakness. And then the secondary for the Niners. They have Charvarius Ward, who's pretty good, but their second corner right now is Diamador Lenore. You don't know who Diamador Lenore is, and that's the point. So their secondary can be had. Now, they are built to compensate for that with the pressure that they get with their defensive line so they can leave 7 guys in coverage. But there's opportunities there. They gave up more 50-yard pass plays last year than anyone else in the entire league. And we know that George Pickens can make contested catches. So if I'm Kenny Pickett and the Steelers, I just chuck it deep a couple of times because that's been a big problem for the 49ers. And I don't know that it got any better this year.
I mean, their run defense is legit, so it's not like you're going to soften them up that way. So that's some really good insight. Let's talk about the strengths of this 49ers team. And you're talking about how they want to move the football. Do you think they're going to I still go back to Purdy because the quarterback position is just so freaking important in these NFL games. And are people 100% confident in his elbow and he's good to go? Is that the kind of the sentiment right now before we talk about the offensive plan?
The 49ers are, or at least that's the message that they are selling. Everything that we've seen from Purdy is that basically he's good to go and the elbow is not going to be an issue and we should be fine. But we have to see. This is a surgery that's younger than Venmo. Okay. Like it literally did not exist 10 years ago. So there's a lot of unknowns. I think only 3 other NFL quarterbacks have ever had it ever. So we just don't know because we're in uncharted territory. And then beyond the elbow, there's the fact that he only has 8 games of experience and he's 23 years old. He's like the 5th youngest starting quarterback in the league, 5th or 6th, right around there. He just hasn't played that much. So the elbow is one thing, and hopefully that's going to hold up. But we also don't know, like, can this guy play in the league yet? 8 games is not a big enough sample. So there are some questions there for sure.
Did you see enough from him in the preseason in terms of a sample size that you're like, okay, he's made the throws. He's made those. You got to put it on a line over the middle in tight coverage. He's also taken the deep shots. Like the throws opposite hash outside the numbers. Has he made those throws that make you personally think, okay, I think the elbow is good. I think as long as it can hold up for 17 weeks, he should be okay.
Well, no, I haven't seen those throws. But to be honest, he doesn't really do those throws anyway. Those throws are not really staples of the 49ers offense. Now, maybe it's because haven't really had a quarterback that's had the arm talent to make those kind of throws. So Kyle Shanahan just hasn't really put them in the playbook. But I haven't seen those throws. I've seen Brock make quick decisions, get the ball out of his hands, and get it out of his hands accurately. That's really the main thing that you're looking at with Purdy. And he did that in the preseason. But in terms of like the deep balls, I haven't really seen any deep balls from him, and I don't really expect to see a ton of them.
The 49ers have a lot of weapons. Whether George Kittle plays or not, they do have a lot of offensive weapons. Christian McCaffrey, if I'm Terrell Austin, the Steelers defensive coordinator, would give me absolute nightmares. His ability to both flex out to the slot, to catch the ball out of the backfield, not to mention just running the football. Then you throw in Deebo Samuel and his unique skill set. Ayuk is I think he's one of the up and coming playmakers that no one really talks about too much, but I love his game as he's really, really good. What is the approach going to be? Is this just going to be a typical Kyle Shanahan? We are going to do what we do. I don't care who the opposition is. My scheme is good enough. Or are they going to have something specifically for your TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith duo and trying to attack the Steelers in a specific way? What are your thoughts?
So the thing that I really like about the 49ers offense this year is, and again, this is assuming that Brock Purdy resembles the player that we saw last season, is that I really think this offense is set up to win any kind of game they need to win. If they need to grind it out on the ground, they have Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell behind him. They can grind it out on the ground and do it that way. If for whatever reason they can't run the ball and they got to drop back and pass and rely on Brock Purdy, because of his accuracy and because of the weapons they have there, I think they can do that and win a shootout if they have to. And they have so much versatility. And what they do, here's basically what the Niners do in a nutshell. They give you a picture, right? They come out with their personnel. It's Deebo, Ayuk, Kittle, Juszczyk, McCaffrey. They come out and they give the defense a picture. But then they have McCaffrey, or they'll have Deebo run into the backfield, and then they'll have McCaffrey go into the slot, or they'll have McCaffrey go out wide, or they'll have their fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, go into the slot. They are constantly changing the picture on you, and then they snap the ball. So just when you think you know the picture, it changes, and then they snap the ball, and everybody on defense has to react, and the Niners are counting on that, just that second of confusion to be able to capitalize. And with everybody healthy or close to healthy right now, that's that sort of like maximum capacity.
This to me, like if you like defensive football, is going to be a phenomenal game. Mike Tomlin giving an extra week of prep is going to have the best plan possible with his current roster. And this Steelers defense is completely overhauled. I think there were only 6 players that had starting experience that made the team this year. I mean, safety group, defensive backs in general, inside linebackers, they got rid of everyone except for Mark Robinson, who was a 7th round pick, who's just a depth piece anyways. This is going to look really different. I'm really excited to see what the Steelers are going to try to do, mix and match. I expect a lot of the 3 safety looks that Brian Flores brought into the system last year when he was there for just his lone year before going to Minnesota. They really like the safeties that they have with KZ, Keanu Neal, and obviously Minkah Fitzpatrick. Matching up when you do what you just said, Christian McCaffrey goes to the slot, Deebo Samuel's in the backfield now. How do they match that? This chess game is going to be really fun to watch, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal football game. I want to ask you about your prediction for this game. Now, currently, we are sponsored by MyBookie, so we'll say the MyBookie line that I have in front of me is that right now, San Francisco is giving 2.5 points on the road with an over-under at 41.5. So, Rob, they see it as a low-scoring game as well. How do you see this playing out? What's your final score prediction?
I think it's going to be a low-scoring game as well. The Niners have averaged less than 20 points a game in week 1 in Kyle Shanahan's 6-year tenure. So they're kind of slow starters. It takes them a while. Kyle's biggest strength is figuring out what you do and then countering that. But there's no film this year because we haven't played. It's week 1. So that sort of ability is taken out of his tool bag. I would take the points in the game, to be honest with you. I picked the Niners to win, but if they do win, I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a low-scoring game, and I could easily see the Steelers winning. So in that kind of situation, I always take the team that's getting the points. And by the way, the Niners kicker, Jake Moody, rookie kicker, who was shaky in the preseason and has been banged up. They're not 100% sure he's going to play. They're pretty sure, but they're not 100% sure. And Pittsburgh is a tough place to kick. With a 2.5 point spread, give me the team that's getting points.
I totally forgot that last year the Niners lost to the Bears in week 1.
I didn't. It was a monsoon.
Oh, yeah. No, it was. Yeah.
Here's how bad the weather was in that game. Fox had to go to the snow graphics where the numbers on the field are black just so you could see the numbers on the field. It was literally melting. The paint on the field was melting. It was unbelievable. But the Niners have an incredible amount of talent, and they lost to the team that was, arguably the worst team in the league last year. So yeah, week 1 with the Niners, weird stuff happens.
I think it's indicative of week ones in general. You just never know what you're going to get. If I'm a bettor, I'm not touching some of these games with a
Yep.
10-foot pole because you just don't know what you're going to get. Rob, go ahead and tell all the listeners out there if they want to get the inside look on the 49ers, where they can find your coverage as well as you on social media.
Well, I'm on all the socials at Stats on Fire. We're part of the Fans First Network here, obviously. So 49ers Gold Standard Podcast Network, where all your pods are available. Or if you're a YouTube person, no problem. Check us out, Gold Standard Network. We just hit 5,000 subscribers, so very grateful and appreciative of that. Thank you very much. So yeah, we're everywhere you want your coverage.
Rob, enjoy the game. I know that I'm going to enjoy the game. We will be talking on the Fans First Sports Network FFSN football show on Monday, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this game a lot. In the meantime, enjoy it, my friend. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Anytime.
No problem.